Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be making this fun birthday card. This is a super beginner friendly kind of card. We're really relying on our stencils and our die cuts. We are going to add some coloring, but it's going to be kind of minimal and really to enhance what we already have. So I'm using the Party Frames dies, the Lovely Layers Party Hat, the Lovely Layers Party Blower, and the Lovely Layers Cupcakes. If you guys follow our lives, then you know that in the live recently we used this cupcake. I had told you guys it was because it was on my desk already, and it was because I had just made this card. So here, this is, you do not need to do this. Don't do this. I mean, you can if you want to. I sometimes have a hard time if I've never used a product before, kind of visualizing what it's going to look like. And so I traced the dies so that I could play around with the stencil to see which one of the designs I wanted to go with. There's a couple of different ones. There's like a banner one. There is the crisscross one. There's stars, and then there's polka dots. I went with the polka dots. And then I'm using a grip mat to hold everything kind of in place for me. As far as the colors, I went with I guess it depends. I was going to say I went with a slightly different version of a primary color, but I guess it depends on which part of the decision making that you fall on, because some people say that a magenta, blue, and yellow is the true primary colors. But anyway, so that's what I went with, because I knew that the pink and the yellow would give me an orange, and the pink and the blue would give me a purple. So the only color we're really missing is green, which I could have created if I had mixed the yellow and blue, but didn't. So that's our little polka dot hat. Yes, it is white, and I want to, originally I thought I was going to have they were going to sit on a colored background. But they ended up being on a white background, and I think it's super important to point out, like, the minimal amount of shading that we're going to do to make that hat a little more dimensional makes a huge difference in setting it apart from the background. So when we get to that point, I'll definitely point it out. For the party blower, I did the stripes on the handle. And then here I'm going back in and erasing that line that I didn't need to begin with. You can just go in and do the stencil, guys. You don't have to do the little outline. So then I'm going to set up my dies. So for the party hat, I'm going to cut out the part that we stenciled, and then the same thing with the blower. These are their two base pieces. And then I'm going to use colored cardstock to cut out the rest. Now, if you guys watch my channel, you know typically I like to color each individual layer, and I will cut them all out of white. But if you are new to adding coloring to your die cuts, or even new to card making, the colored cardstock is, one, a huge time saver, and two, it does look pretty with the colored cardstock before we even add anything to it. So for the dark, it's not really a dark blue, the darker blue, I'm doing all of the parts for the party blower that go on the end, one of the layers of the pom-poms for the hat, and the base layer for the top of the pom-pom. The other one, the lighter, like Tiffany kind of blue, is the top layer. And then for the cupcake, I'm doing a light gray for my highlight, a dark gray for the cupcake base. For the center of the cupcake, like the actual baked part, I am doing that out of white. That's the only one that I'm going to color, because I didn't have a good color for it. And then for the frosting, I went with chocolate, because chocolate on chocolate is my favorite cupcake. And so for the base layer, I'm going to use a dark brown. You'll see that here momentarily. And then for the top layer, I am using like a craft cardstock. The pink is what I am going to cut my little cherries out of. And again, if you are somebody who follows our lives over on the Honeybee channel, then you know that we did use this. We made the cherries, and actually I did tell you guys that I would make another video with that, because I had some more ideas for the paper that we had created. So I will be doing that. So the background here was this is actually a piece that I had stamped quite a while ago, and it's that same purple cardstock with the Celebrate background. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. So I thought, okay, well, I'll be able to utilize that. Newsflash, I did not utilize that. I cut my own. So here I'm kind of laying everything out and dry fitting. Now I left this part in for two reasons. One, because if you are a beginner card maker, it does help to see kind of how everything comes together even before we add any of the shading. And this way we can see how everything kind of like builds up and sits on top of each other. And I do this portion to make sure that when I'm actually done with my die cutting, I'm done with the die cutting. I'm double checking everything and making sure I have all the pieces, parts, and the colors work and, everything. I'm happy with all of that. And then once I know that, then I can move on to the next step. But I don't like messing around with the fussy bits of die cutting. So I want to make sure that I'm sure that I have everything I need before I move on. Because if I have to go back and start die cutting again, I'm going to be annoyed. I'm going to be annoyed. But the other reason that I left this in is because I don't know how this happened, but when I put all of these together, even though I was sitting at my desk doing it, I either didn't press record, which honestly is probably my own fault, user error, but it didn't record it. So either I didn't turn it on or there was some other issue. But anyway, so you can see kind of how the pieces will be laid out together. And now we're going to go in for the coloring. So when we're coloring something white, we're just adding the shadows. And this is a really, really easy way to help give dimension. So we're going to take the darkest color and we're just going to go right along the sides with the C5, go right over that with the C1 or with the C3. And then with the C1, we're kind of just going to blend it in towards the middle. And that's it. That's all we're going to do. And you can see it already. It goes from being a flat triangle to a dimensional cone. For the dimension on the cupcake, there are embossed areas on all of the lovely layers that Honeybee creates. So first things first, I'm just going in with my darkest color and I'm filling in those embossed areas. So where it's kind of sunk in, and then you can see that is already giving some dimension, but I'm going to add some further dimension up from the bottom. So still with that C5, just kind of flicking up from the bottom and then making sure to get those side edges as well. Then with the C3, I will do the same thing. And then to blend it all together, I will also go in with the C1. Realistically, at the end of the day, you will not be able to see that C1. The reason it looks so dark right now is because it's wet. But once that alcohol dries off, you're not going to be able to see any of that. But it will make our blend smoother, so that's why we do it. I apologize for not showing you the colors for this. I don't know why. I guess I must have just been in the zone. So for this, I used an E57, 55, and 53, all of Copic markers. I added the darkest color around the bottom and the edges, and then worked towards my lightest color. For the cupcake frosting, I'm not going to use a bunch of colors. I'm only going to use one. I'm going to use this E57, and this is just going to create my middle tone in between the two colors of cardstock. So I'm really just going in and adding shading kind of to the bottom portion of the parts that are cut out, so that this will create, like I said, that kind of mid-tone section. And I'm just going to go in and anywhere I think it needs to be added, that's all I did to that. So just kind of added a little bit of shading kind of down around the bottom. I used that same E57 to color in the cherry stems instead of die cutting them out. Those are in there, but I don't like the fuzzy bits, so I didn't cut them out. I just colored them. And then for the cherry itself, I did a little bit of darkness kind of just on one side and where the cherry dips in, where the stem connects, and then around right over the darkest part and around the edges with the mid-tone, and then the lightest one in the center. I apologize that I'm kind of a little bit off screen. You will be able to see it, but so for the blower, because the handle is white, I went in with that C5 and just did a very thin line around all of the edges, went over that with a C3, and then finally the C1. Again, when we're coloring things white, we want to make sure we're leaving lots of white. And then for the blower portion, this this is the easiest way that I could kind of like do the coloring is I went in with the darkest color and I just kind of added that around all of the edges. And then from there, I can go in with the what's going to be my mid-tone, which is a B04. I did go in and just trace around that white part with the blue. So that way when we're looking at it like from the side, we don't see any of that white peeking out. But then here, I'm just going to go over what I've already put down and just kind of blend that out. Again, this looks darker because it is, that alcohol hasn't evaporated yet. And then blend that out with my BO2, but again, we still see that there is still plenty of the original color. For the pom-pom, they are two different colors, but they're not that far off. I know it looks like that originally, but we're going to use something called stippling. If you have watched my videos before, you know I'm a big fan of this. It's a really, really easy way to add dimension and texture with just a series of dots. You're just making small dots. And on the top layer, we do still want some of that lighter color showing through, but we're going to go through all three of the colors. And with the bottom layer, we're typically only doing the darker color, and that helps to kind of bring them together. For it's like the trim, right? The trim of the hat. I just picked one color that was just slightly darker than my cardstock, and then I just kind of flicked out from the center. This is one of those ones that outside of like the top two layers, it probably doesn't even make that big of a difference, truly, because they're all stacked up on top of each other. You don't have to use all of the layers, but it makes it a very full trim, which I liked. And then because the yellow is the top layer, I'm using two colors on this one, which is a YR24 and a Y08. For the kind of like fanny blower part that comes out, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just kind of like flicking up from the base. So some of that is still going to be the lighter color of the cardstock. Some of that is going to be the mid-tone, which is this color we're using here, the Y08. And then some of it is going to be the darker color that's just going to give us a little bit of dimension. And then those two pieces stack on top of each other so that offers even more dimension. So this one was like, normally when I go into a card, I typically sit down and I'm like, okay, what am I going to teach them, or what technique am I going to do? And this one really wasn't that. This one was really just like, hey, I'm going to sit down and make this card. In fact, I didn't even know what to make. This is why crafty friends are the best friends. So I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to make. And here what I'm doing is what I call dry fitting. So I'm just kind of laying everything out and making sure I'm happy with the way that it is looking before I glue them together, which again, I apologize, is not included in this video. But anyway, so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to make, and I was like, I need to get something together, and, I only have X amount of time. And so I was on the phone with Dawn, who, for those of you who have never been here, Dawn Woolslagel. She has not been posting videos because she is currently going through chemo and stuff, but she has lots of other videos that you can go back and watch, and she's just endlessly talented. And like on the cancer front, everything has been looking really good. Thank you, Jesus. And she, like, all of her numbers have been good, and she's responded really well to treatment. And, well, I guess I didn't really expect to get emotional, but here I am, which I am just endlessly grateful for, because it's been a year. It has been a year. And so, I don't know if I could add losing my best friend onto that. So I'm very grateful that the Lord is working and healing her. So anyway, we were on the phone and I was like, girl, I don't know what to make. And I was like, pulled out your cupcakes. She illustrated those. And I was like, what do I put with them? And she was like, well, what about, the hat or the blower? Like, those are super cute. And so she's actually the one who gave me the idea for the card. So thanks, Dawn. But anywho, so you saw me kind of putting it together there, and you could see that like the things that I had cut out were really good for like one item as a focal point, but I had 3 items. And so I did end up switching up my original game plan. I didn't love the purple, so I went with blue. Blue was my boyfriend's, but also blue was already like really prevalent in the design. So I pulled out the blue. This is actually, I think it's the blue raspberry cardstock from Gina K. And then for embossing ink, like embossing ink, if you stamp an embossing ink, it's going to leave a what they call a watermark or a slightly darker impression. You can make that more prevalent by heat setting it with clear embossing powder, or you can let it be more subtle. I chose to let mine be a little bit more subtle. I cut it out with the additional layer that has like the star trim from the party frames. And I was liking that much better. Here, I'm just kind of going in and I'm marking on the inside section, the white section, for where I want to do the shadows. This is one of those things that's like, it's an easy thing that really elevates your card making. So if I had put all of these elements down and they had no shadow underneath them, they kind of just like they're floating in outer space. Even though we're not giving them a surface to sit on, it's not a scene card or anything like that. Just going in and adding a shadow. I'm using the same grays that we have been using. And I'm just doing just a very general, kind of little shadow underneath them in their shape. This helps them look so much more dimensional, and also it grounds them. So it looks kind of crazy before you get the elements on there, but once the elements are on there, you can really see how it kind of just takes it to the next level. So I glued that down, and you guys know that I typically leave in my boo-boos. That's why I showed you the part with the purple, because how I had originally envisioned it is not how it came together. And we just talked about this on our last video. Like sometimes you have to adapt. Adaptability is super important in life and in card making. So here, all these layers of cardstock do get kind of thick, and so I want my cupcake to sit in front of my party hat, but there is a lot of layers of cardstock. So what I'm doing is I'm adding foam tape to the areas above and below where that cardstock is, so that it will be lifted and it won't. Because if I just tried to adhere it flat, it would be bowed where all of that cardstock is. So that's why the foam tapes help quite a bit. And then for the blower, what I did was I used glue on the handle part of it, because that will adhere to the part of the cupcake that's already lifted up with the foam. And then I added the foam part underneath the blower where that's just kind of by itself. And because I use the same foam for both parts, they are flush, so they're even. There is that sentiment that I ended up using in the live because I didn't use it on this card. I'm going back in and just, refreshing that kind of that shadow that we put in, because it wasn't quite dark enough. But so here was the original sentiment, which I really did like. I just didn't like how it sat on the card. Also, I felt like the card needed something else. So here is me, crazy lunatic me, going in and trimming. This is very difficult to do, by the way, if you've already put something down with foam tape. The trimmer does make it more challenging. A guillotine makes it a little bit easier. And so basically I'm just trimming off like a little bit off of each side, so that I can mat it on this blue, because this is Cosmic Blue from... Is it Cosmic Blue from Spellbinders? I think that is what it is. And so I'm going to do the hooray sentiment. It fit nicer in with the elements, and then I can stamp that What did it say? Who remembers? Happy birthday. I just used it in another card. That's going to be my Monday card for our Monday premiere. Oh, it says wishing you a day of sweet celebration. So that part I'm going to stamp on the inside, and I'm going to do the hooray on the outside. We have some upcoming summer birthdays, which are myself at the end of August, and literally the last day, my dad 1 week later, and my brother-in-law is like 3 or 4 days before mine. So on Labor Day, we're going to get together to do summer birthdays. So I will need some birthday cards. That is why I am making so many right now. Plus, those are really the only cards that I actually use because I'm terrible at mailing anything. Really awful. Speaking of mailing things, I have put together some more mystery boxes. I know somebody had sent me a message from the blog about the mystery boxes. And so if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know, how you get your information. Like, are you subscribed on the blog, or do you do, just YouTube or Instagram? Like, where do you follow at? So I know where to share the information. That way you can get it. So here we've white heat embossed this on this same blue that is the matte for the background. And I'm just going to put that right over the cupcake base. It felt so much nicer kind of tucked in there. And then of course we have to add all of the details because that's honestly the most enjoyable part for me. So I am adding some rainbow rhinestones, and normally I do try to work in odd numbers and kind of pay attention to those things. And this one I actually think is an even number. I think I ended up using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I used 8 rhinestones, but I paired them kind of oddly. And then I'm going to add some shimmer to, the different elements using a clear shimmer marker, especially for the frosting. And then, because we can never have enough shimmer or glitter or any of those things, I am also going to add some white highlights with my gel pen. A big difference on here, the two things that make a huge difference for this one is the pom-pom, which is, again, I'm just doing dots just like we did with the marker, but it gives it so much texture that it makes it looks like it is fuzzy. I'm also adding some highlights on top of the frosting layer. And I did little dots where the center of the trim is. And then, of course, I added, a little bit of highlights to the party blower, as well as the top layer of the candy cane, the cupcake wrapper. And then from there, because I can never leave anything alone, I am also going to add Stardust stickles. Stardust stickles are my favorite because they take on the color of whatever is behind them. So I added that to the polka dots, and then also to the blower and the blower part of the blower and the stripes. And then, not to be, really, honestly, why stop here? I'm also going to do glossy accents, and I did the glossy accents onto the cherry to make it nice and shiny. And then I did do a couple of little dots over the pom-pom just to give it some raised texture. And then this is it. This is our shimmery shiny card. So I hope that kind of inspires you to give even just a little bit of shading a try. You can see how that hat and the blower pop off of the white, even though they're colored as white objects. There's definitely some separation there. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.